Looks like we're live. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. I'm McKenna. I'm the owner of Murder by the Book here in Houston, Texas, and I am so excited to be joined with Richard Osman and Alan Bradley. Now, as a devout Anglophile and someone who visits the UK regularly, I am especially excited to be chatting and meeting virtually Richard Osman, who I have watched on TV many, many times, lots of quiz shows while I'm over there. And then, as many of you know, Alan Bradley has always been a dear favorite of mine and friend. So today is a special treat. How are you today, gentlemen?
Very well, thanks. How are you?
Really
Richard?
well. Hey, Alan, how are you?
So I'm going to go ahead and introduce the two of them. I will then hide myself, go away, and watch for questions in the comments. I'll be back on later for those. So make sure that if you have any questions for either author, go ahead and pop them in the comments. Also, I'll drop a link if you'd like to order the book. The link will be right there to order it from Murder by the Book. So Richard Osman has worked as an executive producer on numerous UK shows. Richard's popularity and tremendous knowledge of trivia led him to presenting his own BBC quiz show and several others, as well as being the host of Pointless with 7 million views. He is also a regular on panel shows and writes a column for the Radio Times. He's here today to talk about his new book, The Thursday Murder Club, which comes out Tuesday. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you so much.
Alan Bradley is the New York Times bestselling author of many short stories, children's stories, newspaper columns, and the memoir, The Shoebox Bible. His first Flavia de Luce novel, The Sweetness at the Bottom of the Pie, receives the Crime Writers Association Debut Dagger Award, the Dillis Award, the Arthur Ellis Award, the Agatha Award, the McCavity Award, and the Barry Award, and was nominated for the Anthony Award. He also, on a personal note, retains the title of Murder by the Book's best-selling debut novel in the history of the store, the past 40 years. So this should be an absolutely wonderful talk. As I said, I'm going away and I'm going to leave it to you gents. Have fun.
Thank you.
Good, thanks, McKenna. I wanted to just say at the beginning, before we get going too far, is that it's just 10 years ago last week that we lost our beloved David Thompson at Murder by the Book, just in a tragic way. And I want to acknowledge the profound effect that David and McKenna had on my books and my life and my writing career. And I like to think as we begin talking here this evening, Richard, that David is looking down with glee at what he started. And I know how much he would love your Thursday Murder Club.
Oh, thank you. I have to say, I'm so jealous. I thought that what you're sitting in front of was a background that you got off a computer somewhere, but that's actually where you live.
Well, both. It is a background, but it's the view from one of our upstairs windows.
I mean, come on.
It's Peel Castle, which is famed for where Lady What's-Her-Name was banished to in Shakespeare, sent off to live forever with the Stanleys, and she was held captive for, I think, 7 years in the castle. It's also where St. Patrick landed when he came over to convert the residents, and the beach behind me is actually where the Vikings landed when so there's history everywhere. It's a fabulous place to walk around and just look at things. So I'm inviting you to do that.
Oh, I'll be there. The second any of us are allowed to travel anywhere, Alan, I'll be straight up, I promise.
Good, good. Glad to hear it. Now, I was racking my brain thinking what we were going to talk about tonight, and I see we're not going to have any trouble at all doing that. But I wanted to begin by going back to a television show that you did about 4 years ago, which was called Insert Name Here. And the show, on that show, you asked questions about famous people who shared the same name. It got me to thinking about what you and I shared that we could talk about. And without even having to do any work, I came up with a couple of remarkable facts. One was that you grew up in West Sussex.
Mm-hmm.
And my mother and her parents came from Hastings.
No way, which is where this book is loosely set.
Yes, yes. This is, as Dame Edna would say, spooky.
Yeah.
You also talked to the newspapers about having an eye condition called nystagmus. And I have an eye condition that's called aphakia, which allows me to see into the ultraviolet spectrum with one eye only.
No way. What? And how does that? What? Is that useful?
Not really. No, not. In the forest, I can see mouse urine.
Oh, well, that is useful. I mean, listen. I mean, that's the sort of thing that could help in a plot at some point, wouldn't it? The one man who can see mouse urine is the guy who solves the crime. You never know.
Exactly. Yes. One eye like an eagle. And of course, the third thing that we have in common is that we have both written detective novels. So I thought that's a pretty good start for the evening and a good place to begin talking about the Thursday Murder Club. And I wanted to say at the outset, Agatha Christie would have envied you that title. It's absolutely classic. And G.K. Chesterton, too, I think would be just absolutely wonderful. The next question I have, and I really feel enormously privileged, people probably tell you this all the time, but how many people ever get a chance to quiz you?
That's true. Oh my God! Yeah, I'm happy at asking the questions, that's for sure. But I'll give it my best.
Okay. The next question is: have you ever made sourdough bread?
Do you know what? Everybody in the UK, I guess the US is the same. Everybody in lockdown is either making banana bread or sourdough bread. Not for me, I'm afraid. I've been too busy writing a book. I might get one of the characters in the follow-up to the Thursday Murder Club might start baking, but for me, it's that's too much like hard work.
Right.
You look like a sourdough man, Alan.
Yeah, I am a sourdough. I've never made one successfully, but
perfect.
I have been thinking a lot about how much it is like writing a mystery novel. That okay. You have a starter, you have an idea that's like a sourdough starter, and then you have all of the ingredients that you have to put in, like dialogue and description and suspense and mystery and puzzlement and so forth. Those are the ingredients. And then you knead them and mix them for a tiring amount of time.
Yeah, that's definitely true.
Then you have to let it all rise again. You have to go away and leave it alone. And then you have to come back and redo it. You have to redo all the kneading and let it rise again. And then finally at the end, when you've got it finished, you put it on a board and you slash it with a knife, which is like making edits, making cuts in your beloved manuscript. And then you put it in the oven and cook it. And eventually you turn it over to the public to eat it or to read it. And they have a taste of it and tell you whether they like it or not. And of course, some of them.
But also, Alan, it's fascinating. It's that thing, and everyone knows, anyone who cooks knows. So I spent 2 years writing this book, and it's that process that you're talking about. You're going through all these different versions of it, ingredients, changing it around, and you put so much love into it, and so much effort into it, and so much work into it, which is great. And then you serve it up. And so I'm at that stage now where it came out in the UK 2 weeks ago, and it's like everyone's enjoying the sourdough. Everyone's saying, "Oh, that is delicious," and so you're delighted. But then you think, "Blimey, you finished that quickly." It took me 2 years to write, and it takes about 10 minutes to eat. So I'm at that thing now where I'm just thinking, I'm so delighted that people love it, but you know, they finish it in a day, and they kind of go, "When's the next one?" And you go, "Blimey, I only just finished that one." So that's why I'm just about to start. I'm in the middle of baking another batch now, but I know people finish it very, very quickly, which I suppose is a compliment, right?
Oh, it is. Yeah, that's never ending. But the response to your book has been just phenomenal. It's been like nothing I've ever seen before. Usually it's a bit of a niche topic. I was going to say genre, but I hate the word genre. I don't like to see books categorized like that. But it's just, I mean, you had a bidding war with, what was it, 10 publishers that were bidding for the book?
Yeah, with a few. Yeah.
What was that like?
It was really, really exciting. Do you know what? Because over here, and I know an American audience doesn't know it, but because I'm on TV, I sort of thought, oh, I bet I can, you know, in the UK, I thought, well, maybe it'll be sort of, you know, they might be bidding against each other because they just think, oh, you're famous, so we'll put your book out. So to me, the exciting thing was when there's a bidding war in the US and when there's a bidding war in Germany, where they don't know who I am, they've never seen me on telly, they haven't got a clue who I am at all. That was exciting to me. That's the first time I thought, oh, there's something in this book. You know, there's something in these characters. There's something in this mystery. If people in Brazil and China and Russia are reading it and saying this is for us, then that was exciting. And the UK, it was great because I love writing, but also I love the business of selling books. I think if you've written something you're proud of, and you know I am proud of it, I think if you've done that, then you want as many people as possible to read it. And so in the UK, where it's gone crazy in the last few weeks, that's lovely. But to me, it's much more exciting to be talking to an American audience who don't know me and just saying, look, why don't you try this book? I think you might like it. And I just want to see, you know, see what sort of snowball we can get going. So having the book out in America, to me, is I cannot begin to tell you the thrill that is, and to be able to talk to you and you know, to have McKenna introduce us, and it's honestly, it's a dream come true.
Yeah, that's the best part of it. It's just eventually you'll have the chance to go to Houston and see McKenna's Murder by the Book with thousands of books piled up. It's very satisfying to do that and to meet the people who read them. I think, have you had any proposals of marriage or elopement or anything yet?
Well, I mean, I'm quite used to proposals of marriage on social media for many years. Thus far in books, so we haven't had any book festivals yet, so it would have to be Zoom proposals, and I'm not sure Zoom proposals are the most romantic of things, are they? But the second we are allowed to travel, I'm so looking forward to coming out to the States and coming over to Houston and all over the place and just kind of meeting everyone. Listen, propose if you wish. But you know, let's start with I'll sign a book maybe, and we'll see where we go from there. That's a nice starting point, isn't it? You know, right. Little signature, and then listen, maybe we'll have dinner.
Yeah. I had a couple of elderly ladies in California who wrote to me after my first book and wanted to know if I would like to come and live with them. And I told them that I would love to, but my wife wouldn't let me. And so that was the end of it.
But your wife was probably in the background going, "Oh, go on, Alan. Go on, I don't mind."
She might have been.
Yeah, you're just hanging around the house.
I never thought about that before.
Yeah.
You said that Thursday Murder Club is your first and your best book, and I understand that there's a bit of a clue there that you already have a second one in the works.
Yeah, exactly. I've just started the second one. I mean, the idea for the book, because it lends itself to a series, because it's set in a real place. So I went to visit the mother of a friend of mine who lives in a retirement community. Now in the US, I know there's lots of retirement communities. There's fewer over here, but I went to this retirement community. And all crime fans will understand what I saw. I saw this amazing place, beautiful English countryside. There's lakes, there's kind of forest, there's, you know, all sorts of things. There's a swimming pool, all sorts of. And the crime reader in me was thinking, I mean, this feels an awful lot like a good setting for you know, a murder, is what I thought. And then, funnily enough, I looked at my mobile phone and I had no reception. And every thriller writer knows that somewhere where you have no mobile reception is the perfect place for a crime. So I thought, well, that's a good setting. But then I started talking to everyone who lived there. Everyone there is sort of 70 plus. And I started chatting away to these people. And they'd done such extraordinary things, all of them, like really interesting, unusual careers they'd had. And then they found themselves in this community. And I thought, well, if there were to be a murder here, then this lot would solve it. And that got me thinking. And then I walked past a little notice board, and it was just a notice board of some of the clubs that they have in that community. And it was like Tuesday French Club, Thursday Knitting Club. Honestly, the name Thursday Murder Club just came straight to my mind. And I immediately saw these 4 characters sitting around once a week to try and solve old unsolved cases. And then a real murder happening on their doorstep and them solving it. And that was so it came from a real place. And immediately started writing it. But because it's got that sense of place and because it's got those characters, it can go for, I'm hoping, for many, many episodes, I would have thought, because, you know, I just love spending time with them. And I think, and people so far have enjoyed spending time with them here. And so, yeah, I'm pretty much done with the second one. And, you know, I'll keep going 3, 4, 5, 6, you know, however many people want to read.
Wow, that's great. We have a lot to look forward to then. I really, really enjoyed the book. There's so many books that you're given or you pick up, and I usually like to have it right in my hand, but this one they sent to me on, oh, okay, that's amazing. The special effects generator isn't going to key it in. So you have to take my word for it that I have it.
Wow.
I have it on the iPad, but it was so much fun to read it. It lifts you into another realm.
Thank you.
From the sort of, you know, plodding procedural whole hum kind of thing where you can foresee everything. And I foresaw nothing with your book.
No way.
I was just agog with it. And I love the characters. I love that they're all pushing 80. I can really identify that.
That's good news. No, well, you know, that's the beauty of it is, and a few people over here have said, oh, you know, why did you make people in their late 70s your heroes? And you sort of thought,
frozen up here.
Oh, really? Can you not hear me?
Hello.
Hello. Hello. Are you missing me?
Richard, I can hear you and see you. Alan appears to be frozen. Let's hang on. Alan's frozen.
Okay.
Yeah,
well, listen, I'll talk to him for a little bit about that question, shall I?
Perfect.
And we'll see if we can get Alan back. So yeah, people over here have asked a lot. They said, why would you make your heroes people in their 70s? And, you know, my view was, you know, why wouldn't you? And they're saying, well, how do you get in the head of someone as in their mid 70s? And my view is, you know, our brains when we're in the mid 70s are exactly the same as our brains when we're in our mid 50s or our mid 30s. They don't change at all. You know, we still feel like, you know, whatever age we were happiest at. But the one thing that does change is obviously physically there are issues and there are difficulties. Also, we're an awful around grief a lot more, around loss, but also the incredible life experience that we have. And so these 4 characters who at every turn in this book are hugely underestimated, because we tend to underestimate people who are in their 70s because, you know, that's where we are culturally. They've got such experience to bring to bear on these investigations, and they come from very different backgrounds. One of them, Elizabeth, was a former spy, so she's got a real netherworld of things that she brings to it. One used to be a nurse, one was a psychiatrist, and one was a labour activist, trades union official, we would call them over here. So they're very, very, very different to each other, and they form very unlikely friendships, which is another nice thing about the book, about that thing that, you know, you can still find new friends and new friendships in your 70s. There's still new beginnings in your 70s, but also that idea that everybody underestimates them so they can get anywhere. The whole point of the thing is they have to try and get into the heart of the police investigation, which should be impossible. But because of Elizabeth's contacts, and because everybody sort of thinks they're harmless, then they really can get into the heart of everything. They can get to the heart of the mystery very quickly as well. And that's such a beautiful thing to write, and the fact that they face pretty much no consequences for anything they do. Elizabeth says at one point, when there's two cops in it as well, Chris and Donna, and Chris at one point, the Thursday Murder Club are always doing stuff that's slightly illegal, slightly against the law. And she says at one point, he says at one point, look, I'm going to have to arrest you. And she goes, look, we all know you're not going to arrest me. You're not going to arrest a 75-year-old woman and have her spend a night in the cells. We know you're not going to. You're not going to put me in court. You know, I'll go in court. I'll pretend I think the judge is my son-in-law, you know, and they'll let me go, and you know they will. And so the police very, very early on just go, listen, okay, you do whatever you need to do. And it's such a joy to write those characters.
Perfect.
Alan,
he's back.
He's back. I'm going to go away again, but if we have problems, I'll be.
Lovely to have you back, Alan.
Okay, we cut out for a few seconds. I missed a couple of sentences that you said about the almost 80-year-old characters, but I got the gist of it. I wanted to ask, were you consciously going against the trend of the kind of blood and guts mysteries that we're getting nowadays? Did you intentionally choose a quieter, more cerebral form?
It's a really good question, and I don't have an exact answer for you, other than when I started writing it, all the big books were the big psychological thrillers. You know, there was lots of blood and guts and gore and all that kind of stuff. And I just wanted to write a book that had some charm and some warmth, but that, you know, still was a proper murder mystery, and it is. And, you know, and bad stuff happens in this book, but that comes from warmth and kindness and all that kind of stuff, just because that's the kind of stuff that I really enjoy. I like writers who can, like someone like Muriel Spark, who can write about the human condition, but also can make you laugh as well. So I think it was sort of accidental.
I think it froze up again.
Is it me freezing now? Who's freezing?
Nope, you're good, Richard. It's still Alan. It's Alan again. You know, I might just stay on here for a few minutes. Okay. You were talking about people who can write about the Muriel Sparks. You want to continue? Yeah. I think that you know, Alan's question was very good, because, you know, when writers try and write what's fashionable. So, you know, a couple of years ago it was, you know, lots of kind of first person, you know, unreliable narrators and psychological thrillers. But, you know, when you're writing, it really is, it's good 2.5 years between starting writing and your book coming out. And so it's pretty much worthless worrying about what's fashionable at the time you start writing. Because it won't be fashionable when you finish writing. So you have to write what you love, I think. And also the process of writing a book is so difficult, it's so arduous. And I know lots of people would have written and they'll know that. It's really hard work. And so you really, really have to love it. Because there are days where you just, it's like going to the gym where you just think, I really, really don't want to get up and do this today. And then your characters really, really drag you through it. So you hear sometimes, don't you, about people who say, oh, I set out to write a hit book. I set out to write like an airport thriller. And you just think, how on earth do you do that? How on earth do you have the sort of, is it cynicism? I don't know what it would be. The work ethic to just sit down and bash out something that you don't really care about. And, you know, the one thing about this book and the follow-up is, and I really hope it comes across, and it seems to have done with the reaction so far, is I really, really care about the characters. You know, I love the characters. I love what they represent. I love how they act. I love how they behave. I love how they deal with the awful problems that I send their way. But it's it's the only book I could have written, I think, if that makes sense. You know, the best piece of advice that I heard a long time ago, and Alan, you're back. I'm sorry to interrupt. I'm going to say this really quickly, though. The best piece of advice I heard a writer say a long time ago is to write the book that you want to write, because there's no guarantee it's ever going to be published. If you're trying to write to commercial success, then you might end up with a product that you don't love, and that would be the worst possible scenario. I will also say you are perfectly timed right now with the publishing trend in crime fiction, which is what I'm calling modern golden age. So you have all the classic constraints, the locked room mysteries, the really tight plots that you would find like in an Agatha Christie, the off-screen violence, but with a contemporary feel. You know, obviously people who are living right now writing it, they're not dated. Ruth Ware has really capitalized on that trend as well. So not just is that a trend, but also during this pandemic, people are loving the comfort of what feels like a golden age mystery. So Well done, you, planning 2.5 years in advance for perfectly timed peaking at the right point. I'm going to be quiet, but stay on here and let Alan continue talking.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, McKenna. I wanted to say to Richard that it has seemed to me over the past few years that that you write the book first and theorize about it afterwards, because I never knew or thought about any of these things when I was writing the first book, but I gradually formed the theory that it's the tension between the setting and the characters and the situation that exists. That's 99% of it. Murder in plush surroundings is terrific. Agatha Christie had Murder at the Vicarage, which is shocking, and Murder in the Library, which is even more shocking. And perhaps in English history, the ultimate is Murder in the Cathedral.
Yeah.
Death in posh or unsuspected surroundings is far more important than all the twisting and turning. It's the atmosphere that does it. And that's one of the reasons why your book is so wonderful, is that the atmosphere of this community of people is absolutely complete. It just surrounds you with a sphere of warmth, and you just exist in it and read the book. And I think that's what reading should do. So I wanted to ask you, what were you like as a child?
Well, I mean, that's a good question. I think that I was brought up by a single mother. So I was brought up by a very, very strong woman. I'm from a family of very strong women as well. And all of those people now, coincidentally or not so coincidentally, are in their mid-70s. And so I think, you know, that's where a lot of the kind of the characters and the warmth of the thing comes from. Is I was brought up by in a big working class family or blue collar family, you'd say in the States, who were very, very tough, but very, very kind and very, very warm. And so I respond to characters who take absolutely no nonsense, but who come from love, you know, and will do bad things to get the right results. And yeah, so as a child, I was sort of, you know, I always loved new things. I loved television, which is why I went into television. But yeah, I grew up in a big family. So my grandfather was a police officer on the south coast of England, which sounds idyllic, but it's quite a tough place. Like anywhere by the sea, you know, there's two types of place, right? There's beautiful idyllic places, and then there's very, very tough places. And he was a police officer or a cop in those places. So that's the environment I kind of grew up in. So I grew up around crime, but not in that way. And you know, it's something that's always fascinated me. You know, and crime fiction, or you know, as you say, you know, it doesn't need to be put into that genre. But that's what I've always read, and that's what I've always loved. I love, you know, what you're saying about Agatha Christie is exactly right, which is she shows you this beautiful picture of England and these sort of country houses and kind of ivy creeping across little windows, and you just think, well, this is beautiful. And then she makes really horrific things happen, you know, for horrific reasons, but you're so sort of charmed by it that you kind of, we think of Agatha Christie as a very sort of cozy author, and of course she's not really, if you look at what she's writing about. And England and the south of England, where I'm from as well, really gives you that, because, you know, it looks very beautiful, but there's all sorts of trouble going on just underneath the surface. And that's where I grew up. And so that's, yeah, it's really, really reflected in the book, I think.
Yeah, that's right. Who are your heroes?
Growing up, well, it's a funny one, because, you know, I grew up loving sport and comedy, really. Those are my two things. So, you know, I love, you know, Muhammad Ali, I would say would be my kind of greatest hero. In terms of writing, it would be people like Agatha Christie or Patricia Highsmith would be one of my writing heroes, Muriel Spark as well, people like that. But yeah, I grew up sort of adoring sport and comedy, really. Those are my things. And television, to be honest. And TV obviously is the career that I went into as a writer. And so, you know, I think I would have written a book a long, long time ago if I hadn't had this television career, which I've loved. I've always been thinking, yeah, but next year when the TV calms down, when it slows down a bit, when there's a little kind of quiet period, then I'll write. And it took a good 25 years of being in TV before I had like a bit of time to think, oh, now why don't you just write that book that you always wanted to write?
Yeah, that's right. I was in TV for 35 years and I took early retirement to write. Someone once told me it would take 10 years to get a book published, and it took 15.
No, so wow. Yeah.
By the time my first book came out, I was 69.
Wow, that's pretty good.
So it was a real change in lifestyle to go from being a retired guy sitting in a basement in British Columbia to traveling all over the world and doing readings in Norway and Germany and
beautiful. I mean, it seems to have paid off for you, Alan, doesn't it?
It certainly has. It changed my life.
That's lovely.
Totally different lifestyle than I had before, and I don't miss the television, but I'm not advising you to quit TV because we love you too much.
I know people over here keep saying, listen, we love the book. It's great. We love it. And we're really looking forward to the next one. You're going to still do the telly as well, right? And I'm like, yeah, don't worry. I'll try and I'm going to fit in both for as long as I possibly can. But you can see them thinking,
They're going to come together pretty soon because you have the book as optioned by Steven Spielberg's company.
Yeah, which is very exciting. Again, that's another thing after the publishing auction, we had like a TV and film auction. And it's sort of this, you could kind of really see this as a classic BBC kind of Sunday night drama, like a Downton Abbey type thing. But actually a bit of me thought, I want to break out and I want to go abroad rather than be in the UK. Again, just to prove that, that the book was doing it rather than me. And so when Spielberg came in, I sort of thought, well, I mean, what are you going to do? He's a difficult man to say no to, right? And he must know that. So yeah, he's bought the rights and they're writing at the moment. I mean, I sold the rights. I thought it's been quite clever making a film. Again, I was just saying how, I started writing 2.5 years before, and I was trying to, and you don't know what's fashionable at the time. And at the moment, everything's TV and everything's Netflix. And I just thought, I wonder, in a 1.5 years, maybe it'll be film. Maybe film is the thing. And then as soon as I sold it, immediately the entire cinema industry closed down, and no one can make a film. So I feel partly responsible for everything that's happened.
Right. Well, you obviously read the right things at the right age. I never forget the fact that I was a really early reader because I was quite a sickly child for a few years. And like you, I was brought up by a single mother with 2 older sisters. But my grandmother, who lived to be 100, was a very, very avid reader. When she was a little girl in Hastings, she was forbidden to read. She had to go into the coach house and read by a lantern up in the hayloft. But she read, I don't know, probably 4 or 5 books a week for her entire life. And when I was bored, one of the first books that she ever gave me was Dorothy Sayers' Busman's Honeymoon.
Lovely.
I was sort of reading that when I went to kindergarten.
Uh-oh.
And it sets the standard pretty high. I admit that I'm very, very fussy about mysteries. I read a lot, but there aren't a lot that I like, and there are even fewer that I love, mostly for the reasons that we've discussed tonight. The tone and the feeling are wrong. But you've absolutely hit it on the head, and I really have to congratulate you for doing such a wonderful job, and I look forward to the next one and the one after that and the one after that. I will be one of those horrible people that's saying, good, when's the next one?
I mean, the fascinating thing is, and I think it's good. I think, classic golden age mysteries are very, very good to read when you're young. I think they're great for teenagers. And with this book, certainly in the UK, so many people are saying to me, oh, my teenage son, my teenage daughter picked it up and is reading it, and I never see them read. And they're literally just getting through the whole thing because it's not the sort of books that are normally aimed at them. But there's nothing in the Thursday Murder Club you can't read as a teen. I'm not interested in, you know, as you say, the blood and the gore. It just is not for me. It happens off, you know, it happens off camera. And when people are saying to me, "Oh, look, I read it, then my mother read it, and now my son is reading it," you just think, "Wow." I mean, I couldn't think of anything better. In the TV I like to make, I like to make mainstream telly because that's what I grew up watching. I like to make stuff that you can watch with all your family, and that is better than you think it's going to be, that, you know, has some quality to it. And, you know, I would love the modern equivalent of your grandmother who you know, who just starting out reading in a hayloft, which we all do over here, to be picking up this book and going, "Hold on a minute, there's a whole world here of mystery and crime and all this kind of stuff that I could read." And, you know, because Dorothy L. Sayers led you onto a lifetime of amazing, exciting reading, right? And I would love being an entry book to that, where people go, "Is there more of this sort of stuff?" And, you know, of course, there's so much more of this sort of stuff.
Yeah, that's so important, isn't it, to get the right foot on the road when you're very young as a reader. The things that are put into your hands are so important. I just can't stress that. It's why I love libraries and librarians so much. They're doing that work and putting the right books into the hands of children.
Yeah, and great English teachers who spot a child who might just be ready for a certain book and they know the right ones. Because, you know, there's nothing like putting you off reading for life than a first bad book, right? You know, at school, we get taught Shakespeare, and you think this is not the time you should be teaching us Shakespeare. You know, you want to leave that 20 years because it just puts people off that for years and years. Whereas I think carefully curated great novels, and especially mystery novels, are perfect for teenagers.
Yeah, that's true. Shakespeare will wait until later. I was just reading The Tempest this afternoon, and I'm catching up with all of my neglected reading from when I was a teenager. And you can enjoy it when you're in your 80s. You can just sit back and you don't have to worry about the content too much. But
yeah, you don't have to worry about your homework, do you?
It's nice to see the news reporting that the bookshops are doing so well now. That everybody
I've been in the UK. I've been up and down the country into lots of independent bookshops, and we haven't got anything quite like Murder by the Book, which I'm very excited to go and visit. But all of them have said, and I know the States are going through something very, very similar to we are. All of them have said, look, during the pandemic, during lockdown, actually our bond with our readers has actually improved because people really missed us. So we would hand deliver books. You know, they would be ringing us. We would recommend things. We would hand deliver books to them. And since bookshops have been allowed to open over here, they said it's just been amazing. You know, the amount of people coming in saying, "We're so happy you're back." I was at one bookshop down in Kent, which is where this book is set. And the woman there said the first person who came through the door said, I'd like a £200 voucher for this store, please. And the woman said, "Oh, who's that for?" They said, "Nothing. I want you to do first thing through the till to be something big." He said, "You know, I'm going to spend it over the next month or so. So just put that through the till for me." And they're all saying how lovely it is to have people in it. It's been great having the Thursday Murder Club. I feel like quite honoured because it's the book that lots of people are going into these independent bookshops to buy, and then they're picking up other things as well. So it's been like a love-in. I've been going around to all the independent bookshops, hearing about how much the readers are loving those bookshops. They're thrilled I'm there because they got all these signed copies. They're saying, "Look, this is flying off the shelves, and this is lovely." And then I'm able to go on social media and say, "This bookshop, that bookshop, they've got signed copies. This is the place we should be." You know, and it's been absolutely lovely. It's been awful, the pandemic. There's a few nice things that come out of it. A sense of community, a sense of understanding we have to rely on each other a little bit more, a sense of understanding who's important, you know, healthcare workers and stuff like that, and a sense of understanding what we love. And one of those things is bookshops and is literature and is being able to escape into worlds that are, you know, where we're slightly more certain of what's going to happen than we are of the real world at the moment. So it's been a really humbling and an honouring experience, I have to say.
Yeah,
I'm just going to interrupt real quick and just say, as a bookseller, I can't tell you how much it means to those stores in the UK that you've been able to visit and sign books, because, you know, your book with the acclaim that it's received is going to sell either way. But the fact that those stores have those signed copies to be able to get to their customers and something to set them aside from just an online order is invaluable to their success. So just a broad thank you to you for helping support them. It's really great.
It couldn't be more of a pleasure. The whole thing, that I think something that some authors don't quite understand is they're in the book selling business, and the most important people are bookshops. I mean, that's the industry we're in, you know. And you know, without those people hand selling your book and you know, telling people about your book, you have nothing. You've got this beautiful thing you've written that you're proud of, and that no one is going to see. And I just think that the whole community, whether you're a writer or a seller or a reader, we're all one community, and everybody has to join together. And I think we really have this year, and it's so lovely for me to be part of it.
Yeah, well, thank you again. I think that starting in March, at least with Murder by the Book, we had a similar situation where in April we sold something like 10 times a normal month in gift cards, because the awareness hit people that there's something that they assume is going to be there every day in normal circumstances really might not make it. And so we had this tremendous outpouring of support early on, which got us through, you know, being closed, you know, having to be closed for some time, and continues to help us. And we're, you know, knock on wood, doing well. And we clearly, people ask me all the time, so I'll just take 2 seconds to anyone who are regular customers wondering, we clearly miss our 3 to 5 author events every night that get hundreds of people in the store buying books. I mean, that's irreplaceable as far as funds, but the amount of curbside orders and mail orders and phone orders and all of that have happened throughout this time, and now being open for appointments, has been, it's been incredible. And so we certainly have felt the love throughout the process. And, you know, being able to do these events with people that we might not have been able to see. I mean, I haven't seen Alan in years. So that has been, you know, a highlight of the pandemic, a little bright spot in it. And, you know, we hope that it continues to sell books. But if for those of you in the comments who are saying, we hope that that's the case for Murder by the Book, yes, thanks to you continuing to support us as customers. So sorry for that little interjection. Alan, did you have any more questions before we get to the comments?
No, just one thing I was going to say was that there's also the idea that authors buy a lot of books too when they come to bookstores. I remembered when I was in Houston that you very kindly offered to ship as many books as I could fit into a box. And it was a huge, great big box that weighed about, I think, 40 or 50 pounds. And when I got home to Malta with it, it arrived at the post office, which was in the next village. And I had to carry this 40 or 50 pound box of books from one village to another with the temperature at about 100 degrees. And I don't think I've ever had my muscles tremble so much, but I did make it home, and I still have all of those books in the library. So the author as book buyer is probably important too. So we love to buy books,
yeah,
just as much as readers, and probably buy just as many, if not more. I think my library just hit something like 15,000 volumes recently.
Wow. Well, when I was doing this book tour, I thought, because I was going around independent bookshops, I thought I'm going to buy a book in every store, because, you know, there's never a shortage of books you want to buy, right, ever. So I thought, I'll buy one in every store. And then it dawned on me after about 4 days of this that I was doing 15 shops a day. And I had an awful lot of books. So I've quite a few of them I've got on just by my bed to read. A few of them I've given to friends. A friend of mine just gone out to Iraq for 3 weeks. I've said, look, here's 3 or 4 books. But also I literally said to them, what books should I buy? And that's the beauty of any independent bookstore. You say, what books should I buy? And they're like, right, I'll tell you, they look at you, they ask what you like. they've got their favourites and they hand stuff out. And I've got someone reading Small Pleasures by Claire Chambers at the moment, which a bookstore over here gave to me, and it's terrific. And I wouldn't have read it if I hadn't walked into that bookstore on that day and asked what to read. And that's the joy of the thing, isn't it?
Right. Good. Well, I guess I'd better turn it over to McKenna. I feel as if I've used up all the time that people want to be asking questions of Richard. So I'm going to step back now and let you take it away.
Okay, I could sit here and listen to you two praise independent bookstores all day, but that would just be gluttonous. I do have some questions for Alan as well in the comments, so don't go too far, Alan. Cindy has several really good questions, so we're going to start on those. Since you have trouble reading a computer screen, how did you actually write this book? Did you write by hand, dictation, or use a computer, Richard?
Yeah, it's a really good question. The eye condition I have is called nystagmus. It means I'm extremely short-sighted, even with glasses. And I never really thought about it. But when somebody came in, I wrote the whole thing in secret. So, I wasn't telling anyone I was doing it. And the first person who saw me writing, they go, "Why are you right next to the screen?" And I didn't realize I was. So I'm like 2 inches away from the screen as I'm typing, because that's the way that I can see. And that's the way I used to watch TV when I was a kid as well. Absolutely right next to it. So yeah, I wrote it all on a computer, but very, very, very close up is the, so it's a good question though. And from the same person, why did you choose murder mystery? I think we've talked about that a little, but why for your first book? I think because it's what I read. And you should always write what you read, I think, because I only ever want to do things on telly or anywhere that I would personally watch. I mean, otherwise, so you've got to second guess people or think, oh, I wonder what people would like. Whereas if you're doing the thing that you love, you're sort of, so all the way through I was right when I was writing it. And a couple of times I was thinking, oh, this doesn't sound like, I'd read an Ian Rankin and I'd go, oh God, I can never write like Ian Rankin. And then you think, well, I don't have to write like Ian Rankin because Ian Rankin already does that. So I don't need to. But I knew I knew the basic beats of a crime story without ever having to think about it. I never had to sit and plot anything out because I know roughly where this goes. So I was able to take my world and give it this framework that I really understood implicitly just from years and years and years of reading brilliant crime writers. So I don't think I could have written anything else because it's the thing that I understood and loved the most. And it was almost just came out that way because you had such a knowledge of it. Yeah. A question for Alan. We have several people asking questions along the same lines. What is next for Flavia Duluth?
Oh my goodness, I don't know. The 10th book was published about 2 years ago. And as Richard was saying earlier, it gets to the point where people are expecting another one before the present one is published. And you get to the point where you don't have much of a life. And I consciously decided to take some time off about 2 years ago and catch up on my own reading just to let the tanks fill up again, as Mark Twain used to say, and maybe broaden my experience. But I've been getting a lot of pressure from readers and publishers about the Flavia books, and we've begun talking about an 11th one now. I have a lot of ideas. I have tons and tons of notes and things. And then of course there's also the TV series is still in production in spite of the COVID lockdown on any kind of production. The scripts are still in the works. So all I can say is I don't think you've heard the last of Flavia Duluth.
Good news.
Very good news.
So Richard, will you include your love for football or darts in your books? Cindy says that she can easily see your characters going to a pub for a drink or darts or go to a football game.
Yeah, I mean, soccer is huge over here, and one of the characters, Ron, who's the Labour activist, is a fan of a team called West Ham. I'm a fan of a very, very underperforming team called Fulham, who are perennial underdogs, and so I didn't want to make any of my characters a Fulham fan, so I didn't want to put them through that. So yeah, look, and darts is in Canada and the UK is bizarrely huge. I mean, I know in the US it's not. It's seen as quite a niche pastime, but over here it's massive. The players who play are millionaires. They're making all this money. Yeah, I could see maybe in book 3 or book 4, we'll have a darts player in there. I think that I would love to write that. They got they're brilliant characters, great nicknames. They're millionaires, but they still drink in pubs, so that they're interesting characters. Yeah, I wouldn't mind. Maybe if in book 3 you see a darts player come in, then that's thanks to you.
So I did say we were big Anglophiles. My mom and I have a running joke of going 180 when something goes well. So we again, not over here, but we watch the dart tournaments when we're overseas. So you mentioned the next book that you're working on. Can you tell us anything about it?
Yeah, I mean, everybody who survives the first book returns. So everyone who's still alive or still at large at the end of the first book is back for the second one. And such is the way of publishing. Obviously, I've started writing, I finished the previous one some time ago. So I've been writing it during lockdown. And it's been enormously useful to me just to give me that routine and also spend some time with characters who I love. And also, it's so nice seeing the reaction to the first book, which over here has been just crazy. I mean, it's been beyond my wildest expectations. But it's so nice reading it and reading what people think of the characters and how much they love them, knowing that I've already got another one in the bag, knowing that I'm not having to sit there just go, oh no, I can't handle this pressure. These characters people love, because I know it's done. I mean, it needs another draft and what have you, but I know it's done. I know that, the characters who are returning are the same characters, and I'm moving them on a little bit, their lives move on a little bit, but I know that if anyone loves the first one, they're going to love the second one, which is a really lovely, it's a very warming feeling. If I hadn't written already, I'd be absolutely panicking, I suspect.
So Keith asks, when you're writing the characters, did they take on a life of their own, and was there a certain amount of partner writing involved? And I think we can ask that to Alan too. Like, when you're writing Flavia, she's such a well-drawn, well-known character. Does she ever just kind of take the wheel away from you? Let's start with you, Richard.
I would say, yeah, if you'd said to me a couple of years ago that was the case, I'd have said, no, that's just something the authors say. And certainly during lockdown, I mean, 100%, I feel like they are helping me tell the story. I think of a situation and then they navigate their way through that situation for me, which is amazing. And the weirdest thing, and Adam will tell you if he agrees with this, the weirdest thing is me being thrilled about the reaction to this book is interesting. I get that. I understand why I would be happy. But I'm really thrilled for the characters in the book, that people are enjoying what they're doing. And I'm really thrilled for them. And I just think, I know they're not real, but I'm so delighted that people are hearing their story. And that's a very peculiar sensation, I would say. I don't know if Alan feels the same about his characters.
Yes, I've been thinking a lot about one particular aspect of that recently. I've been telling people that although the characters may be fictional and the plot may be fictional, the feelings are always genuine. I think that connects with a lot of readers, and it's for that reason that they read the books at times when they're very troubled in their lives, and they form very strong bonds with the author that you played a part in their life that was so important to them. And I find as I get older that I'm more and more touched by that there's this huge network of people out there that are connected to me by this fictional character. But yes, they are very real. Flavia talks to me all the time. She wakes me up in the middle of the night with just a word or a phrase.
Yeah.
And I just write it down, make a note, and don't worry about it. Just write it.
That's great.
That's so absolutely true. It's that you'll just write a line, and then before you've thought of it, one of the characters has thought of a response, and you think, oh God, that's just. And Alan's thing is fascinating. That thing of people connecting to your world, because I think if people connect to you, there's too much of an ego there, sort of saying. Whereas they're connecting to a person who you're also connected to, which is a character, that's a lovely thing because you're really sharing something, and that's I think that's very special.
Yeah, it is. It's especially touching when you hear from people who have read your books to parents or children who were dying in the hospital. And there's no fiction in that. That's real life. And I think you have to take it very, very seriously. And you can't ever trivialize it. You have to give it. You mentioned love before, and security, and being part of a family, and it's like that. I think being a mystery author is being like part of that large family that you mentioned. You're just part of it, and they're part of you, and that's the way it is, and it's perfect.
Well, and as readers, as readers too, anytime we read, the next Flavia book, or we return to the sequel to Thursday Murder Club, it's like we're visiting with friends also. So, it's such a fun bond between writer and reader that we have this relationship with your fictional characters. How did your characters come to you? Were they fully formed, or did you work them out?
I mean, one loss of it is lost in the mist of time, because in my head they came fully formed, and I guess they can't have done. But mine sort of came from lines of dialogue, funnily enough. I sort of had these few little lines, and I thought, well, who on earth would say that? That's an unusual thing to say. What sort of person would you have to be to say that? And then these characters came together. And I always wanted a spy character because I love John le Carré, and I love Ben McIntyre's non-fiction stuff that he writes over here. So I wanted a spy in there. I wanted Joyce, who narrates a lot of the book, is a nurse. She's sort of based on my mum, who was a teacher. And my mum is one of those people who, is surrounded by the great and the good, and people who've run companies and all this kind of stuff, and people who are very sort of sure of themselves. But if you want something done, you go ask my mum. My mum will do it. If you want trouble, if you want, two people to be brought together, ask my mum. She'll do that. And that's what I wanted with Joyce. And nursing, I thought, was a similar profession, so she could do that. And yeah, I mean, they're sort of taken from 4 different bits of my brain, I think. But yeah, I never had any other characters. They never had any other jobs. They never had different personalities. So they sort of, they came from somewhere in my brain, and the 4 quarters of them came together in the Thursday Murder Club. And
was Flavia fully formed?
Oh, absolutely. Yes, I've said that she came from the brow of Zeus, complete with house, family, troubles, and her absolutely unlimited knowledge of chemistry, which is embarrassing because I know nothing about chemistry, and Flavia knows everything. So it keeps me on my toes.
So I think I have one more question from the comments, and then we will wrap up. Christina was wondering, hi, Richard, do you think your work on quiz shows has impacted your plotting in any way? And do you have any dream casting when Spielberg comes through with that film?
I think I've thought a lot. My whole career, really, before I was a presenter, is as a producer, and that's coming up with TV formats, working out, quizzes and things like that, reality shows. And the key with that is, and it's a bit like crime fiction, because you know where you're headed. You know at the end somebody's going to win. Okay, so that's taken care of. So you know the direction of travel. And then it's about, because lots of people launch quiz shows and most of them fail, but then it's about making sure people have a really, really good time on the way there, making sure that you stick to the rules and you get to the end and somebody wins, but you have as much fun as possible, and you love the hosts and you love who you're with. And that, I think, is the same way I dealt with this book, which is, look, I know people know the direction of travel. And that's why crime fiction is massive this year, because we don't know where we're going, right? The future is occluded. We're not sure where we are. Whereas in a crime fiction book, we know where we're going. We know there's going to be bumps along the way, but we know it's going to be okay in the end. And that's why quizzes, crime fiction and stuff like that is so important at the moment, because it gives us that sense of we know where we're going. And in terms of the casting, it goes back to the last question, which is everybody who reads this book, everybody casts it in their head. They cast the 4 members of their Thursday Murder Club. They tell me the actors it's going to be. And I'm the only one who can't. Because again, and I'd have thought you were crazy if I said this 2 years ago. To me, I think, well, I mean, they are people. They're real people. So how could somebody play them? That's a ridiculous suggestion. But yeah, people, you know, say Helen Mirren and Dame Judi Dench and Dame Maggie Smith and all sorts of people like that. So it's a dream. It's dream casting for somebody. But for me, I sort of think, yeah, but they are who they are.
Okay, well, I think a little bit of housekeeping, and then we will bid adieu to these gentlemen. So if you tuned in late, as soon as this video is over, you can watch it from the beginning right here on the same spot on the Facebook Live tab of our Facebook page. Also, we will get it uploaded to YouTube later. So if you don't have a Facebook account or you want to share with people who don't, you can watch it on YouTube. If you are interested, again, there are links in the comments to order Thursday Murder Club and all of Alan's Flavia de Luce books if you haven't tried them yet. Obviously, we recommend both of these books very highly. This has been an absolute pleasure. Check out our virtual events calendar. I think we've done about 75 of these so far, and we have some pretty good ones coming up. Let's see what else. I think that's it for today. So thank you all so much for joining us. Thank you, Richard Osman. Thank you, Alan Bradley. This has been, I mean, not just for the people watching, but this has personally been an absolute treat and a wonderful afternoon. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure. Look forward to seeing you soon.
I would love that. Bye, Alan.
Bye-bye, McKenna. Thanks. It's lovely to see you again.
Lovely to see you as well. You gents have a good day.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.